Let's do this. So my name is Andres. Welcome to the Baking Steel Test Kitchen. We are gonna make magical pita bread today. It is awesome. And we're gonna get right to this. Take notes if you'd like, but we're gonna post this recipe up on the follow-up on YouTube, and we hope you guys like it. And by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. It's great. Magical pita bread. And if you guys know, it's the bread that kind of puffs up and makes pocket sandwiches. It's really versatile. It's super fun to make, and it's super easy too. And just a side note, typically how I make pita bread is with pizza dough. We just take our pizza dough and divide it into smaller portions. About 100 grams, typically 100 gram doughs portions, which are same size that we use for our English muffins or even our bagels. Just a good size for individual. Let's get right to the recipe. We are like to do an overnight recipe typically because we like to ferment for at least a day. That's when your flavor is really added to the dough, the natural fermentations. Flour for pita. If I'm specifically doing pita bread, I'm going to use my dream flours here. I'm using an all-purpose flour, and I'm going to use a little bit of spelt, and the spelt just adds a little bit of earthiness into the flavor of the dough. So this is all-purpose. This is actually almost identical to our pizza recipe. It's 500 grams of flour, and we're gonna go to 75% hydration. So sit down, we're gonna raise the roof on the hydration by 5% to 75. So let's do this, okay? Let's do it. Again, we measure all of our ingredients with a digital scale. We're pre-measured to save some time in our class here. So make sure you have yourself a digital scale. So this is all-purpose flour, and I'm gonna add 5% or 50 grams, 10%, I'm sorry, 10% or 50 grams into my mixture here. I like 10% because spelt is a little bit, it's got a really nice flavor. It's a nice little like hint of flavor into this dough. So I basically whisk my flours up. I take my yeast, and this is 1 gram of yeast. If I'm making it the same day, I might use 2 grams, but 1 gram of yeast, and I just kind of whisk it up, okay? And I take my salt. I pour it into I could dissolve this in the water too, but I'm gonna put it right into my bowl here, and I'm gonna whisk it. And now I'm gonna take the water. And the water comes out. This is 75% or 350 grams, actually it's 375 grams of filtered water. I pour it into the bowl. I'm gonna change from a whisk to a spatula, just so the flour doesn't get all clogged up in there. And just mix, that's it, right? Super easy. Once I get a little bit of that water hydrated in the flour, I'm gonna pour it out of my bowl, just like this. Scrape my bowl clean. And now I'm gonna take, and all I'm gonna do is just kind of mix this thing for maybe, 2 or 3 minutes. And you can see me do, I'm just gonna lightly press it. On a skill level of 1 to 10, this is about a 2, okay? And I'm just kind of pressing using the palm of my hand. And what this does is it takes out any of the dry clumps in the flour. And after about 2 minutes, and I've done this a bunch of times, but I can feel the dough starting to get sticky, which means it's really the water's really dispersing throughout. It's getting it stuck on my hands. And what I'll do next is I'm gonna take this out and take this batch of dough, place it back into my container, and I'm gonna let this sit overnight. And how I do that is I'm gonna leave for about 12 hours or until bedtime. I'm going to leave that in this container. Right before I go to bed, I'm going to take this container and put it into the refrigerator to get it cold, to cold ferment it. And the reason I do that is because working with cold dough is a lot less sticky than room temperature dough, especially considering the high hydration. This is 75% of water in this dough. That's super high, so it's going to be super sticky. One thing you could do is reduce that water to make it less sticky. So instead of 375 grams, you could go to say 325. It's going to change the texture just micro, not a huge difference, but just be mindful of the water content. And if you don't like really sticky dough, less water is fine. And experiment. Try 300 grams. Try 250. That's kind of what we're all about here, is trying different things and seeing what happens. So now I'm going to take this out really quick. Put my hand up quick. I should have you come over there, Chef, when I'm doing that. Pause. All right, so dry my hands off. So now we're going to fast track. We're going to pretend that because we did this yesterday for class today, I've got a little bit of dough in the fridge. I took out, removed it. I'm going to divide this up and make what we call pita balls. So instead of dough balls, we make pita balls. Want to try to get a close up of this too, Chef? On the other camera?
Yep.
Yeah. I like these about 100 grams. So I'm going to take my scale out again, and I'm going to measure this to 100. Now I'm going to make a couple here, so I'll show you what I mean. Again, this is a super sticky dough. Let's see how I did. It's a little bit heavy. 100 grams, okay? Let's get 2 of them out. That's 1. Look at that, right on the money, 2, 100 grams. So, because this dough is super sticky, I'm gonna flour up my hands and the dough itself. And what I'm gonna do is make, can you see on the camera here? Yeah. Let's see if we scrape this out here. Because it's so sticky, I wanna make sure I have a little bit of flour in my hands. And I'm gonna just kind of make a ball. So I'm gonna kind of make my hand like a cup, like this. And I'm gonna press and like, kind of turn it like this, okay? And I use a little bit of flour down. And you can see it gets a little stuck on my hands. I'm gonna use a little bit more flour, right? But it's not terrible. Scrape underneath it if I want. Keep my work area pretty clean. But you can see I've got this cool little ball. Do a little bit more. Stick it to my hand a little bit. So more flour. Scrape my hand. I actually had it and I blew it. It's important to keep your hand, that's getting sticky. It's important to keep my hand really, let's see, I'm pressing down, making the cupping motion, and I've got myself a ball, a nice ball. And I'll place this ball onto a plate, okay? And let it rest. I want to cover this so it's airtight, and I'm going to let this rest for maybe an hour so the glutens can kind of chill out. Because what I'm going to do next is kind of roll it out with a rolling pin, which we've got some pre-made here. But first, I'm just going to do another ball here for you guys. So again, flour up your hands and just kind of lightly press and turn at the same time. You can see I've got this great little dough ball, 100 gram dough ball. That's going to chill out now for the next hour or so. I'll cover those in a bit. You can see about an hour ago, we made some dough balls, 5 of them. And these are ready to be rolled out into pita circles. Is that a word, pita circles?
It is now.
So I'm going to roll these out into little discs, and the discs are going to be probably about like 5 or 6 inches, like these little discs like this. So again, flour my workstation, grab one of these dough balls, put it down to the flour. I like to kind of coat both sides. You can see. Flour my pin. And now I'm just gonna kind of lightly press down. And the secret to pita is you wanna roll it thin, but not like super thin, because you wanna have it leave some room for this bread to expand and blow up like what, chef?
Like a balloon.
Like a balloon? What else can we call it? Anybody else have any ideas? What else can we call
Like a
it?
pita?
Like a pita? And if this gets stuck to your rolling pin, don't be shy. You can put a little flour down right directly on top. If you guys can see this, I've probably got, this is probably about a 1/4 inch, right? 1/4 inch thick. And my size is probably about, I don't know, what would say that is 6 or 7 inches, 5 or 6 inches maybe. This dough is not quite room temperature. It's a little bit on the cold side still. So it's starting to shrink back a little bit. That's okay. I'm not gonna stress about that. I wanna kind of make my discs, and then we're gonna go to the oven. And we should talk about that. I've got my oven cranked up with my baking steel. I've got my baking steel on my bottom rack if I have one steel, because you got to leave some room for these things to expand, okay? My oven's at 550 degrees. We are not using the broiler. We're kind of doing just all heat. And you want a really good preheat for at least a minimum of an hour. And what that does is it traps all that heat inside that steel so the baking steel can work its magic. Hopefully these things work. Hopefully they expand. In either case, without a hot steel, not going to expand as well. But I've got my discs done. We're going to move over to the oven, which my oven is preheating it. Again, it's 550 degrees for the last hour. It's hot. And these things take about 2 minutes to really expand. So let's give it a shot. What do you think? I'm gonna,
Want to peel?
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it, to show you guys. I'm gonna use a pizza peel. I'm gonna do one at a time. And you can do multiples, but I'm gonna, just for fun, I'm gonna flour my peel up, lube it up just like I would a pizza. I'm gonna put my disc on, my pita disc onto my peel, and I'm gonna make sure this thing slides like a hockey puck. Because I'm gonna go into the oven, and I'm essentially gonna put the back of the peel down and just kind of peel it right off. And so, if it's not gonna be loose on this peel, now's the time to find out, not when I go into the oven, all right? So, I've got my disc, let's do this, all right? I've got my hot oven, perfect. So all I do is open the oven up, back of the peel, boom, turn it down, close. What's that?
Turn the lights on.
Oh yeah, turn the lights on. Good call. So we got this on. I'm gonna put my timer on for 2 minutes just so I can watch this thing. It's kind of fun. Hopefully my steel's hot enough to have this thing expand. I'm gonna move this so you guys can kind of take a look at what's going on. Can you see that? Can you see that in there? I think you can. So this is kind of great television here, huh? What I'm trying to do, when it starts to expand, I'll get back to you guys so I can see that. But in any case, the oven's hot. I can start to see little bubbles forming on the pita bread. And as it gets closer to expanding, we'll jump right in there. And it's been about a minute and 20, sorry, a minute and, not even a minute, been like 40 seconds. Here, it's starting to expand a little bit. That's exciting. I don't know if you can see this, guys. You can see that it's starting to bubble up a little bit. And once it gets to, there it goes. So much fun, huh? Great television. This would be a commercial break if we had had one, right? It's starting to blow up, like it's starting, like little balls are going. You see it on that? Oh yeah, that's a good picture. I'm gonna show you Craig's camera here. Let's see what's going on here. Camera on a camera. Starting to go. Here it goes. Starting to expand. It's been about a minute, almost a minute and a half. Whew, so excited. So in the meantime, do we have any questions we can answer for you guys? I'll get to these here. Let me see.
What percentage of spelt?
Oh, what percentage of spelt? We used like 10%. So there's 500 grams of flour, all-purpose. We removed 50 grams of the all-purpose, and we added back in. That's 2 minutes, and it's starting to blow. We removed the all-purpose and added 50 grams of spelt, and that's just our call. You can do more than that, but I think that's a really subtle amount where it's going to add a nice earthiness to the pita, but not too overpowering. It's a good number. And we've got a full-blown pita here, by the way. You guys can see that. It's cool. And there's a couple of schools of thought on this. Like, you might want to flip it over, and if that's the case, grab some tongs or something, but I'm going to use my hands because I don't have tongs here. I'm going to kind of flip this over and cook the other side of that. It's going to lose some of that like awesomeness, but it's okay. It flattens out afterwards anyway, after the air is removed, but in any case. That's cool. So I'm going to pull that out of there in a minute, and then we'll get to some questions. I'm going to use my tongs to do that. It's always good to have these. You can see I've got our pita bread, and I've kind of toasted both sides of it. Now I'm getting the air out of it. It's hot, so be careful. That steam it's particularly hot. So that's it. Pita bread. Boom. So what we do with these is, as you're making them, I'm going to throw another one in there. As you're making these, you want to get a towel and make like this, okay? And place your pitas in the towel and close it up. Keep that steam inside, but keep them nice and soft. And make a stack. Make a stack of like, however many you have. And these will be good for a couple of days, easy, like a day or two. Right? My kids will devour these later. They're awesome.
Is that a baking stone in your oven?
Oh, it's a great question. That is not a baking stone. And if you've been following us a little bit, we are the baking steel guys. So inside our ovens is not a baking stone, but a baking steel. And that means it's an ultra-conductive piece of steel called a baking steel that we use instead of stone. And the idea is it stores 20 times the energy of stone. So we're able to blow up pita, make pizza in just minutes, and a lot more other stuff. Come to more Zooms, you'll see what else we can make with our steel, baking steel. Anybody else?
How long do you cook the second side?
Literally like 20 seconds. And you don't even need to. You can just leave it on one side. I just like to toast it up on both sides.
Oven temperature?
Oven temp is at 550 degrees Fahrenheit. The hotter, the better for pita. I mean, obviously, you don't want to go, most home ovens won't pass 550 anyway, so that's your max. But 500 is fine.
What are your thoughts on vital wheat gluten?
Ooh, this is a very common question. I've got a whole recipe out there. Vital wheat gluten is great if you want to add some gluten to, I'd say your all-purpose flour, you might want to add some vital wheat gluten to it. And that's a product that you buy at the market that is, Bob's Red Mill has a brand of vital wheat gluten, and you add like a tablespoon into your dough mix. But that's really it. But I don't find it necessary at all. I don't use it. Anybody else? That is our pita class. You guys rocked. Thank you for being here. We're going to record this. If you guys have any questions at all, drop it in the comments. We'll get back to you on that. Thanks for being here for our pita class today. You guys rock. Thanks. Bye.